Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the quantum readings on her holographic display, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The numbers couldn't be right. The quantum entanglement experiment had worked perfectly for months, until now. The synchronization between paired particles was no longer just instant. Somehow, the effect was happening before the cause. "Marcus, are you seeing this?" she called out to her research partner. Dr. Marcus Williams wheeled his chair over, his dark eyes narrowing at the data streams. "That's impossible. The particles aren't just correlating. They're—" He trailed off, running a hand through his graying hair. "They're reaching backward through time." Sarah finished. The implications made her dizzy. Their breakthrough in quantum computing had led to this. Particles that didn't just ignore space, but time itself. The facility's warning klaxons shattered their contemplation. Red emergency lights began pulsing throughout the underground laboratory complex. Sarah's tablet lit up with security alerts. Multiple objects had appeared in high orbit, massive vessels that had simply winked into existence without warning. "Dr. Chen, Dr. Williams," the facility eye's calm voice cut through their stunned silence. "The Joint Chiefs are requesting your immediate presence in the emergency conference room. We have visitors." The conference room was already packed when they arrived. Military brass sat shoulder to shoulder with civilian officials, all eyes fixed on the massive display screen showing the alien vessels. Sleek and crystalline, they hung in formation above Earth like suspended icicles. General Laura Hayes, their military liaison, motioned them forward. "Our quantum experts," she introduced them to the room. "They need to see this." The screen shifted to show a new image, an alien being with iridescent scales and multiple eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its voice came through in surprisingly natural English, likely translated by I am High Commander Ixel of the Galactic Concordat. Your species has begun experimenting with forces you cannot comprehend. Your quantum manipulation threatens the fabric of space-time itself. You will cease these experiments immediately, or we will be forced to intervene." Sarah felt her heart racing. First contact with an alien civilization, and it came with a threat. But something wasn't adding up. "General," she whispered, "how did they translate our language so quickly? How did they know exactly what we were working on?" Hayes's expression darkened. "They didn't just arrive, Doctor. They've been watching us. Probably for years." The alien commander continued. "We have observed your rapid technological advancement with growing concern. But these latest experiments..." The alien scales shifted color, displaying what Sarah interpreted as anxiety. "They exceed acceptable risk parameters. You have 24 Earth hours to shut down all quantum research facilities and surrender your data." The room erupted in argument. Politicians demanded diplomatic solutions, military officers discussed defense options, and scientists protested the loss of their research. But Sarah wasn't listening. She was staring at her tablet, where new data from the lab was streaming in. "Marcus," she hissed, showing him the readings. His face went pale. "General Hayes," Marcus called out, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to show you something. Now." The data painted a disturbing picture. The quantum anomalies weren't just continuing, they were growing exponentially, and they had started long before their experiments began. "We're not causing this," Sarah explained to the stunned room. "Our experiments detected it, yes, but look at the temporal signature. Whatever's happening began decades ago. We just created instruments sensitive enough to notice it." Hayes turned back to the alien commander's image. "High Commander Ixel, we have data suggesting we're not the source of these quantum disturbances. We request a joint scientific consultation to verify our findings." The alien scales shifted to a deep purple. "Impossible. Our sensors clearly indicate." It paused, receiving information off-screen. Its scales bleached almost white. "This cannot be. The temporal signatures. They match the awakening protocols." "The what?" multiple voices asked simultaneously. "Protocols established eons ago, when the Ancient Ones still walked among the stars. Warning signs that preceded, The commander's translation cut out briefly. "We have made a grave error. These disturbances, they are not caused by your experiments. Your experiments were drawn to them, like moths to flame." The room fell silent as implications sank in. First contact wasn't about stopping humanity's dangerous experiments. It was about something much worse. "Commander," Sarah stepped forward. "What exactly are these awakening protocols warning us about?" The alien's scales rippled with colors Sarah couldn't interpret, something our ancestors sealed away, when reality itself was young. Something that feeds on quantum uncertainty, that grows stronger as possibilities multiply. We believed it was just a legend, a story to frighten children away from dangerous research. Marcus let out a bitter laugh. Funny how often humanity's greatest discoveries start with someone else's warning labels. "You don't understand." Ixel's voice carried an edge of genuine fear. "The legends speak of a time before time was fixed, when reality was fluid and chaos reigned. The ancient ones created order, stability, forced quantum uncertainty into rigid channels. But there were things that thrived in that primordial chaos, things they had to lock away." New alarms blared. Sarah's tablet displayed fresh data from their quantum sensors. The anomalies were accelerating, forming patterns that defied analysis. "Commander," Hayes addressed the alien, her voice steady despite the situation. "I suggest we table the discussion of our experiments. If something ancient and dangerous is awakening, perhaps we should focus on that." The alien commander's scales settled into a deep blue. "Agreed. We have ships entering your system now. But understand, if what we fear is truly awakening, military might alone will not suffice. The legends speak of the ancient ones combining technology with something else, something they found in abundance only after sealing away the chaos." "What did they need?" Sarah asked, though something in her gut told her she already knew the answer. "Imagination," Ixel replied. "The ability to conceive of possibilities that should not be, to believe in the impossible until reality itself gives way. We have spent millennia perfecting our technology, following paths laid down by the ancient ones. But you humans..." The alien scales shifted to colors they'd never seen before. "You dream. You imagine. You believe. And in a universe governed by quantum mechanics, belief shapes reality." Sarah looked at the quantum readings again, seeing them with new eyes. The patterns weren't random. They were creative, almost playful, like a child discovering its fingers for the first time. "So," Marcus said with a grim smile, "humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology at all. It's our stubborn refusal to accept impossible odds." "Perhaps," Ixel replied. "We shall soon see. The entity stirs, and when chaos itself awakens, we will need every impossible dream humanity can muster." As if in response to the commander's words, the quantum readings spiked. Reality rippled, and somewhere in the void between possibilities, something that had slept since the dawn of time began to dream its own dreams of what might be. The Quantum Research Facility's observation deck offered a perfect view of the alien ships now in Earth orbit. Sarah counted 17 crystalline vessels, arranged in a complex geometric pattern, their surfaces reflecting sunlight like faceted diamonds. But her attention kept drifting to the strange distortions in space between them. Subtle warps in reality that her instruments could detect, but her eyes couldn't quite focus on. "The distortions are spreading," Marcus announced, not looking up from his tablet. "Whatever's causing them, it's accelerating. The quantum field irregularities have increased by 300% in the last 6 hours. High Commander Ixel's hologram flickered beside them, its scales shifting through shades of deep blue. "Our sensors confirm your readings. The entity stirs faster than the legends predicted. We may have days, not weeks, before it fully awakens." Sarah rubbed her temples, fighting off a headache. The closer she looked at the distortions, the more her brain hurt trying to process them. "What exactly are we dealing with? You keep calling it the entity, but what is it?" The alien commander's scales rippled. The ancient ones left few clear records. They spoke of it in metaphors. A dreamer whose dreams reshape reality, a hunger that feeds on possibility itself. They sealed it away when they imposed order on chaos, but the seal required constant maintenance, until they vanished. And now it's breaking free, Marcus finished, because our quantum experiments accidentally provided it with the energy it needed. Not exactly. A new voice joined them. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, their theoretical physics expert, walked onto the deck with her own tablet displaying complex equations. Look at these temporal traces. Our experiments didn't wake it up. They just let us notice what was already happening. Something else caused this. The quantum internet. Sarah breathed, the realization hitting her. Not our experiments. The global quantum computer network humanity's been building. Billions of quantum processors, all linked together, all generating possibility spaces. A feast of uncertainty. Ixel's scales paled. We thought your experiments were dangerous, but your entire civilization has been inadvertently feeding it. Every quantum calculation, every superposition explored. The deck's windows suddenly darkened as another distortion rippled past the station. When they cleared, the stars had changed position. Sarah checked her instruments, her heart racing. That wasn't an optical illusion, she reported. For 3.7 seconds, we were looking at the sky from somewhere else. Reality itself is becoming unstable. Emergency alerts blared throughout the station. Elena's tablet displayed new data from ground stations worldwide. It's not just here. Similar anomalies are being reported globally. The Mediterranean Sea briefly turned to crystal. A suburb in Tokyo swapped places with one in Buenos Aires for 12 seconds. The laws of physics are breaking down. Not breaking down, Marcus corrected, studying the patterns. Breaking free. The rigid structure the ancient ones imposed is cracking. Reality wants to be fluid again. Ixel's hologram flickered more intensely. The Concordet's council is disturbed by these developments. Many suggest we should evacuate this sector of space, seal it off until the anomalies subside. You mean abandon Earth? Sarah's voice hardened. Billions would die. Billions across thousands of worlds might die if we don't contain this, the alien commander countered. The entity's influence will spread. Reality itself could unravel back to primordial chaos. Elena stepped forward, her eyes fixed on her calculations. Maybe not. Look at these variance patterns. They're not random. They're structured to the chaos, like a language. A language. Marcus moved to look at her tablet. You think the entity is trying to communicate? Not exactly. But these patterns, they remind me of something. Sarah, remember that quantum computing breakthrough last year? The one that seemed to violate causality. Sarah's eyes widened. The quantum retroactive problem-solving algorithm, where solutions appeared to propagate backward through time. She trailed off, a wild idea forming. The entity isn't just breaking physics, she said slowly. It's solving problems, exploring possibilities. Like a child learning to walk, it's testing reality's limits. Ixel's scales shifted to a color they'd never seen before. You suggest we try to teach it, guide it? The ancient ones fought to contain it, and you want to communicate. The ancient ones imposed order through force, Marcus pointed out. Maybe that was their mistake. Maybe chaos doesn't need to be contained. It needs to be understood. Another reality ripple washed over them. This time, the station briefly existed in multiple configurations simultaneously, pristine and damaged, new and ancient, occupied and abandoned. When normal space reasserted itself, Sarah's quantum sensors were showing entirely new types of readings. It's not just affecting space and time, she realized. It's affecting probability itself. Past, present, and future are bleeding together. Every possibility is trying to exist simultaneously. Elena's tablet chimed with new calculations. The effect is expanding exponentially. At this rate, Earth's entire probability space will destabilize within 48 hours. After that, After that, reality itself becomes negotiable. Marcus finished. Everything that could happen will happen. Chaos reigns. Ixal's hologram stabilized, its scales showing complex patterns. The Council has reached a decision. We are authorizing the use of our most powerful weapons, probability bombs designed to collapse quantum uncertainty into fixed states. We can't defeat the entity, but we might be able to contain it, even if it means destroying this entire sector of space. Sarah looked out at the distortions between the stars, her mind racing. The entity wasn't evil. It was curious, exploring, learning. Like humanity itself, pushing boundaries, testing limits, refusing to accept that something was impossible just because everyone said it was. Wait, she said, a dangerous idea forming. What if we don't try to contain it or destroy it? What if we try to work with it instead? Work with chaos itself. Ixal's translator seemed to struggle with the concept. It's not a being you can negotiate with. It's a fundamental force of unreality. So is quantum uncertainty, Elena pointed out. But we learn to work with that. To channel it, use it, build with it. What if that's what the entity is waiting for? Not someone to fight it or contain it, but someone to understand it. Another reality shift washed over them. This time, instead of chaos, they saw possibilities. Countless versions of Earth, of humanity, of future and past all existing together. Not in conflict, but in harmony. Look at that, Marcus breathed. It's not trying to destroy reality. It's trying to expand it. To make room for more possibilities, more dreams, more imagination. Sarah finished. Commander Ixal, please, before you condemn an entire sector of space to destruction, let us try something else. Something impossible. The alien commander's scales shifted through complex patterns as it considered. Around them, reality continued to ripple and shift, but the changes seemed less random now, more purposeful. As if the entity was listening, waiting, hoping for something new. You have 24 hours, Ixal finally declared. After that, we deploy the probability bombs. For better or worse, the universe will remain ordered, even if we must sacrifice your world to keep it so. Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. They had one day to do the impossible, to find a way to communicate with chaos itself, to bridge the gap between order and entropy, to prove that humanity's greatest gift wasn't just imagining the impossible, but making it real. As if in response to her thoughts, the quantum readings shifted again, forming patterns that almost looked like words. The quantum research facility's main lab had transformed into an impromptu command center. Holographic displays showed reality distortions spreading across the globe, while dozens of scientists from both human and alien civilizations worked frantically at their stations. Time was running out. 17 hours until the Concordat deploys their probability bombs, Elena announced, her voice tight with exhaustion. She hadn't slept in 36 hours, none of them had. The entity's influence continues to expand. Beijing just reported their entire city experiencing 5 different weather patterns simultaneously. Sarah nodded, not looking up from her quantum interface. The patterns she was seeing in the entity's emissions were becoming clearer, but understanding them was like trying to read a book written in 4 dimensions. Marcus, how's the translation algorithm coming? It's not a language, not exactly, he replied, surrounded by floating screens of data. It's more like mathematics mixed with music mixed with dreams. Every time I think I see a pattern, it shifts into something new. High Commander Ixal's hologram observed their work, its scales showing complex patterns of anxiety. The Council grows increasingly concerned. 3 more of our worlds have reported quantum instabilities. The entity's influence spreads faster than we predicted. A new alarm blared. Elena's screens flashed with urgent data. Major reality breach in progress. Something's happening in orbit. They rushed to the observation windows. Above Earth, space itself seemed to fold, creating geometric patterns that hurt to look at. The Concordat's crystalline ships moved into defensive formations, their weapons charging. The entity, Sarah breathed. It's not just affecting reality anymore. It's manifesting. Through the impossible geometries in space, something vast and incomprehensible began to take shape. It wasn't solid, wasn't energy, wasn't anything that human language had words to describe. It existed in multiple states simultaneously, its form changing depending on how you try to observe it. Fascinating. A new voice commented. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their quantum consciousness expert, joined them at the window. She'd been oddly calm throughout the crisis, as if she'd expected something like this all along. It's not just breaking physics, it's demonstrating what physics should have been all along. What do you mean? Marcus asked, his eyes fixed on the impossible thing forming above their world. The Ancient Ones didn't create order, Yuki explained. They imposed it. They forced reality to follow rigid rules because they were afraid of uncertainty. But look at what's happening now. Every possibility existing at once, every potential being explored. This isn't chaos. This is freedom. Ixal's scales shifted to show confusion. Freedom is dangerous. Without order, without structure, existence itself becomes meaningless. Does it? Sarah challenged, something clicking in her mind as she watched the entity's manifestation. Or does it become more meaningful because anything is possible? Look at the patterns in its emissions again. It's not random noise. It's trying every possibility, exploring every option, learning through experience. Like a child, Elena added, understanding dawning in her eyes. A child doesn't learn by being told what's impossible. They learn by trying, by failing, by imagining new ways to succeed. Marcus's translation algorithm suddenly chimed. Wait. I'm getting something. The patterns, they're not a language or mathematics. They're stories. Stories. Multiple voices asked at once. The entity isn't trying to destroy reality, Marcus explained, his fingers flying over his controls. It's trying to imagine new ones. Every quantum fluctuation is a new story, a new possibility being explored. It's dreaming, but its dreams become real. A new alert sounded. Sarah checked her quantum sensors and felt her heart skip. The entity, it's responding to us. The patterns are changing, becoming more structured, more like our own thoughts, Yuki finished. It's learning from us, just as we're learning from it. The Ancient Ones tried to contain it, to force it to follow their rules. But what if what it really needed was collaboration? Another reality shift washed over them, but this one was different. Instead of chaos, they experienced something like a conversation. Impressions, ideas, possibilities flowing back and forth. The entity wasn't attacking or destroying. It was reaching out, trying to connect. Commander, Sarah turned to Ixal's hologram. We need to try something. Something that goes against everything the Ancient Ones believed. We need to stop trying to impose order on the entity and start working with it instead. The alien commander's scales showed intense internal conflict. The council would never agree. The risk of not trying is greater. Elena interrupted, showing new calculations. The probability bombs won't work. They'll just force the entity to adapt faster, to become more chaotic in response to the attempted imposed order. We need to try something new. Something human, Marcus added with a slight smile. Something impossible. Sarah took a deep breath, watching the entity's manifestation continue to evolve above their world. We need to tell it a story, not with words or mathematics, but with possibilities. We need to show it what reality could be if order and chaos worked together instead of fighting. How? Ixal demanded. How can you possibly communicate such a concept to a being that exists in all possibilities at once? Through imagination, Yuki replied calmly. Through hope. Through the uniquely human ability to look at the impossible and say, why not? The entity's patterns shifted again, forming structures that seemed to respond to their very thoughts. It was listening, learning, trying to understand these strange beings who dreamed of possibilities instead of fearing them. Sarah turned to her team, her eyes bright with determination. We have 16 hours to do the impossible. We need to teach an entity that predates reality itself how to dream without destroying existence in the process. We need to prove that order and chaos aren't enemies. They're two parts of a greater whole. And if we fail? Ixal asked, its scales showing genuine curiosity beneath the fear. Then we fail trying something new, Marcus replied. Something that's never been tried before. Something uniquely human. Above them, the entity continued to manifest, its form now resembling something between a dream and an equation, waiting to see what these strange creatures would do next. The next 16 hours would determine not just humanity's fate, but the very nature of reality itself. And in labs and research centers around the world, humans began to do what they did best: imagine the impossible, and then find a way to make it real. The global quantum network hummed with unprecedented activity. Every quantum computer on Earth had been linked together, creating the largest computational system in human history. In the research facility's command center, Sarah watched the final preparations with a mixture of hope and terror. 9 hours until the Concordette's deadline, Elena reported, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. The entity's manifestation is now visible to the naked eye from most of Earth's surface. Above their world, the impossible being had continued to grow, its form shifting between states of matter and energy that defied classification. It filled half the sky now, a kaleidoscope of reality-bending patterns that forced people to look away or risk headaches from trying to comprehend it. The quantum network is ready, Marcus announced. Every particle entanglement processor on Earth is synchronized. We've never attempted anything on this scale before. High Commander Ixal's hologram appeared, its scales showing complex patterns of concern. The Council has reviewed your proposal. They find it troubling. You intend to deliberately connect your global quantum network to an entity that manipulates reality itself. Not connect, Yuki corrected, her calm demeanor unchanged despite the stakes. Communicate. We're going to show it something it's never seen before, a structured dream. Sarah nodded, checking the final calculations. What they were attempting went against everything known about quantum physics. They weren't just going to observe quantum states. They were going to create them, shape them, weave them into something new. The entity explores every possibility simultaneously, she explained. It dreams in quantum superposition. So we're going to do the same. We're going to use our quantum network to generate a shared dream. A vision of reality where order and chaos coexist. Impossible. Ixal's scales flickered. Reality cannot be both ordered and chaotic. The two states are mutually exclusive. Are they? Elena challenged, bringing up new equations. Look at life itself. DNA follows rigid chemical rules, yet produces endless variety. Human consciousness operates on deterministic brain chemistry, yet creates art, music, stories. Perhaps the Ancient One's mistake was thinking order and chaos had to be enemies. A new alert sounded. Marcus's screen showed fresh data from their quantum sensors. The entity's patterns are changing again. It's responding to our preparations. I think it senses what we're trying to do. All quantum network nodes report ready, the facility's AI announced. Awaiting initialization sequence. Sarah took a deep breath, looking at her team. What they were about to attempt had never been done before. Using quantum computers not to calculate or process, but to dream, to imagine, to show an ancient entity of pure possibility that structure and freedom could coexist. Begin the sequence, she ordered. Around the world, quantum processors spun up to full power. In orbit, the Concordette ships detected the energy spike and moved to defensive positions. And in the sky above Earth, the entity's manifestation seemed to pause, as if listening. Network synchronization at 100%, Elena reported. Quantum coherence holding steady. Ready to begin transmission. Sarah nodded to Yuki, who stepped forward to the main control interface. As their quantum consciousness expert, she had designed the core of what they were about to attempt. "We're not going to send it mathematics or language," Yuki explained as she worked. "We're going to send it stories, dreams, every human culture's myths and legends, every child's imagination, every artist's vision, all translated into quantum states. Stories." Ixel's translator seemed to struggle with the concept. "You believe you can communicate with a fundamental force of reality through stories. Stories shaped our reality," Marcus replied. "They taught us to imagine something better, something more than what was. They taught us to dream of flying, of touching the stars, of doing the impossible. And then they inspired us to make those dreams real." The quantum network's hum changed pitch as Yuki's program began to run. On screens around the room, they could see the translation happening. Human imagination converted into quantum states, possibilities given structure without being forced into single outcomes. "First wave of transmission beginning," Elena announced. The entity's response is, "Wait, something's happening." The entity's manifestation shifted, its patterns aligning with their transmission. For a moment, everyone in the room experienced a shared vision. The first story ever told around a prehistoric fire. The first human to look at the stars and imagine reaching them. The first dream of flight. The first hope of a better tomorrow. "It's not just receiving the transmission," Yuki said in wonder. "It's sharing its own dreams with us. Look." The quantum readings shifted again. Through their network, they began to experience the entity's perspective, the infinite possibilities of the early universe, the joy of exploring every potential, the confusion and pain when the ancient ones forced reality into rigid channels. It was never trying to destroy, Sarah realized. It was trying to create, to explore, to dream, just like we do. Another alert sounded. Elena's screen showed new data that made her eyes widen. The quantum distortions, they're changing, becoming more structured, more harmonious, Marcus finished. The entity isn't imposing its chaos on our order anymore. It's learning to work with it, to create something new. Through their quantum network, they could feel it happening, order and chaos beginning to dance together instead of fight, structure and freedom finding balance. The entity's manifestation changed again, becoming something beautiful rather than terrifying. 6 hours until the probability bombs, Ixel reminded them, its scales showing complex emotions. The Council requires proof that this communication will lead to stability. Sarah looked at the readings, at the way reality itself was learning to exist in both states at once, neither fully ordered nor fully chaotic. "We're not trying to achieve stability," she explained. "We're trying to achieve harmony. Look at the patterns. They're not random anymore, but they're not rigid either. They're alive." Above Earth, the entity's manifestation continued to evolve, its form now resembling something between a dream and a dance, order and chaos moving in perfect balance. Through the quantum network, they could feel its joy at finally being understood, its eagerness to learn this new way of being. Yuki smiled, her hands moving across the controls as she fed more stories, more dreams, more human imagination into the quantum transmission. "We're teaching it to dream with structure," she said, "and it's teaching us to see the beauty in uncertainty." The future hung in balance, but for the first time since the crisis began, Sarah felt real hope. Humanity had faced the impossible, and instead of fighting it, had found a way to dance with it. Now they just had to convince the Concordat that sometimes the best solution wasn't to impose order, but to imagine a better way. In the sky above, the entity continued its dance of possibility, waiting to see what these strange, dreaming creatures would show it next. 3 hours remained until the Concordat's deadline, but in the research facility's command center, time itself had become a fluid concept. Reality rippled with new patterns as the entity responded to humanity's quantum network, each wave bringing fresh insights and possibilities. "The harmonics are stabilizing," Elena reported, her exhaustion forgotten in the wonder of what they were witnessing. The entity isn't just communicating anymore, it's composing. Through their quantum network, they could feel it. The ancient being of pure possibility learning to shape its power into something new. Order and chaos merged in complex patterns, like a symphony where every note existed in multiple states until observed, yet somehow created perfect harmony. The Council demands an update. High Commander Ixal's hologram announced, its scales showing a riot of colors. They're detecting quantum changes spreading throughout the galaxy, changes that defy classification. Show them this, Sarah said, transmitting the latest readings. The data told an extraordinary story. Reality itself was being rewritten, not through destruction or force, but through imagination and harmony. Marcus's screens displayed the transformation in real time. The entity's influence now extends beyond our solar system, but look at the pattern. It's not breaking physics anymore, it's expanding it, creating space where order and chaos can coexist. Impossible. Ixal's scales flickered rapidly. Reality cannot exist in multiple states permanently. The Ancient Ones proved. The Ancient Ones were wrong. Yuki interrupted gently. They tried to force reality to follow their rules. We show the entity that rules can be flexible, that structure can support freedom instead of constraining it. Through their quantum network, they felt the entity's response: joy, understanding, and something else. Something new. The being that had once threatened to unravel reality was instead helping to weave it into something greater. 2 hours until the probability bombs, Alina reminded them. But these readings, I don't think they'd work anymore. Reality itself has changed too much. Sarah watched the entity's manifestation through the observation window. What had once been a terrifying display of chaos was now a dance of infinite possibility, beautiful rather than frightening. Commander Ixal, your council needs to understand. We're not containing the entity or controlling it. We're growing with it. The alien commander's scales showed deep thought. Explain. Look at the quantum patterns, Marcus said, highlighting specific data streams. Every possibility still exists, but they're not fighting each other anymore. They're harmonizing. Like different instruments in an orchestra, each playing their own part, but creating something greater together. The entity isn't just learning from us, Yuki added. It's teaching us too, showing us how to see reality as it truly is, not a rigid framework, but a canvas of infinite potential. New alerts sounded. Alina's screen showed fresh data that made her gasp. The quantum changes, they're not just affecting space and time. They're affecting consciousness itself. Every sentient being connected to the network is experiencing everything. For a moment, everyone in the room felt it. The perspective of the entity merged with their own. They saw reality as it had been before the Ancient Ones, infinite in its potential. They felt the pain of being confined, the joy of being understood, and the wonder of discovering a new way to exist. The Council, Ixal announced, its scales showing amazement. They're experiencing it too. Through our ship's quantum sensors, they can feel. The dream, Sarah finished. Not chaos, not order, but the dance between them. The harmony that comes from letting both exist together. Through their quantum network, they felt the entity's response. Gratitude, excitement, and invitation. It wasn't just showing them possibilities anymore. It was offering to help them explore them. 1 hour to deadline, Alina said softly. Commander. Ixal's hologram flickered as the alien received new information. Its scales shifted through colors they'd never seen before. The Council has withdrawn the probability bomb authorization. They say reality is changing too fundamentally for the weapons to function anyway. A cheer went up around the room, but Sarah kept her eyes on the readings. It's not over, she said. This is just the beginning. The entity isn't just changing reality. It's opening doors to new ones, showing us possibilities we never imagined. Through their quantum network, they could feel those possibilities unfold. Futures where humanity and the Concordat explored existence together, where order and chaos danced in eternal harmony, where imagination and physics worked as partners instead of opponents. So what happens now? Marcus asked, watching the entities' beautiful dance above their world. Now, Yuki smiled. Now we learn to dream on a quantum level. To see reality not as something to control, but as something to create with. The entity isn't our enemy or our teacher anymore. It's our partner. Partner. Ixel's translator seemed to struggle with the concept. You would work with a force of pure possibility. We already do, Sarah replied. Every time we imagine something new, every time we tell a story or dream a dream, we're working with possibility. The entity just helps us make those possibilities real. The quantum readings continue to evolve, showing the universe transforming not through destruction, but through imagination. Humanity had faced an impossible crisis and solved it not through force or containment, but through understanding and creativity. The ancient ones thought they had to choose between order and chaos, Alina said, watching the data streams. We showed there was another way, a human way. Above Earth, the entity's manifestation had become a permanent part of the sky. A dancing aurora of quantum possibility, a reminder that reality was not a prison of rigid rules, but a canvas for infinite dreams. The crisis was over, but the story was just beginning. Humanity had not just saved reality. They had transformed it, teaching an ancient force of chaos to dream with structure and showing the ordered universe how to dance with possibility. And in the quantum harmony that followed, both humans and aliens began to explore what reality could become when imagination and physics worked together to make the impossible possible.